Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Sunday. I hope you are all well, you're all enjoying the weekend wherever you are around the world watching this video. Of course, no Arsenal to keep us entertained this weekend after that Friday night defeat at Manchester City, but next Saturday will come around very, very quickly. That tricky looking trip to Goodison now with Sean Dyche going to be in charge. You imagine that it's going to be one hell of an atmosphere at Goodison on Saturday, and certainly a trickier game than it probably would have been had Frank Lampard still been in charge, but plenty of time to go before that game. We've got the transfer deadline coming up before that, which is obviously going to take a lot of focus away over the next couple of days before all eyes turn to that match at Goodison on Saturday. I will talk a little bit about Moises Caicedo later on in this video, but sort of thinking about that match at Everton, we will start off with Thomas Partey and the latest on his injury. Now, we all saw what happened to Thomas against Man City on Friday. He didn't come back out for this second half after injuring his ribs. Mikel Arteta revealing afterwards in his press conference that he was just feeling too much pain. He couldn't continue, had to come off, and that he was going to have to go for an MRI scan to see what the issue is. Obviously, those comments created a lot of worry amongst Arsenal fans. I think we all realise probably that Thomas Partey is the most irreplaceable player in this Arsenal team right now, which is why Arsenal are trying to sign a midfielder between now and the end of the window. So yeah, there was lots of concern about Thomas Partey, but I've heard pretty good news when it comes to Thomas Partey. As far as I'm aware, he is okay. The scan results did not pick up anything serious, and he is hopeful that he will be able to play against Everton. Obviously, I can't confirm 100% that he'll be playing at Goodison Park, but he is hopeful that he will be fit to feature and that he will be okay to start training as normal ahead of that match on Saturday. Whether that's straight away or maybe he needs a couple of days just to get a couple of days extra rest before starting training, we'll have to wait and see. But the initial signs with Thomas Partey are promising and that he will be okay, which is obviously fantastic news for those reasons I said earlier on, that he is the most irreplaceable player in this Arsenal side. I don't think there can be many that can argue that. I think everywhere else amongst the squad, there's players who can come in and may not be at the same level as the players who start, but they can do a decent job. I think that one role, that Thomas Partey role, there's just no one in the squad who can play it. And then he was probably the closest, but even he's injured at the moment. And as I said recently, Sambi for me is just not a Thomas Partey replacement. If you're going to play Sambi, you play him slightly higher up. You don't play him as a holding midfielder. I just don't think that's his role, and I think it's pretty unfair on him to be asked to play that role. It seems like he does get asked to play that role a lot. He did against Manchester City in the second half, took a lot of criticism, which I thought was pretty... I mean, in a way it was fair because I think that what was pointed out was pretty fair, his positioning and all that, but I also think he just shouldn't really be asked to play in that position. I just don't think it's very fair on him because he's not an out-and-out DM, and he's certainly not a Thomas Partey replacement. It took Thomas Partey, and I've said this loads of times, it took Thomas Partey about 10 months to learn that position under Mikel Arteta. It's a really complicated role to play, and then for bringing someone like Sambi, who's barely playing, barely gets any minutes, to then suddenly ask him to do the job that Thomas Partey does, which is basically screen the defence but also be the key man in progressing the ball forward from midfield. I think it's just a really difficult one for a young kid who doesn't play much to be asked to do. But fingers crossed, Thomas will be fine for that trip to Everton, which will be a massive, massive boost to Arsenal because they need him fit, they need him available, and especially the sort of game I'm expecting at Goodison. When you think Sean Dyche is going to have them all week, he's going to have them all pumped up, the atmosphere is going to be pretty intense, I imagine. And the one thing you're going to get from Sean Dyche teams is players who work very, very hard and are going to go into everything very aggressively. And he will be demanding that on Saturday. So you need that person in midfield. You need Thomas Partey. You can cope with that. You can deal with it. You can stay calm. You can progress the ball forward, like I said, and be that key player for Arsenal. So fingers crossed, Thomas will be okay for Saturday. Okay, so from one midfielder to another, from an Arsenal midfielder to a Brighton midfielder for now anyway, Moises Caicedo. We know Arsenal bid for him, we know Brighton have said no. The latest in terms of what I can say on it, from my understanding, is nothing much has changed. Arsenal were made very, very aware by Brighton yesterday that he is not for sale. Now, whether that's, whether that's just a sort of game of cat and mouse at the moment, which you get with transfers, or whether that is absolutely 100% their thoughts. It's going to be interesting to see what Arsenal do. There's only a couple of days left. Do you test the water again? Do you see if they were bluffing or not? As I said yesterday, Arsenal were made very, very aware. They were told categorically that he is not for sale. So when you think Arsenal bid 60 million, if that is the case, if they were that strong about it, you would think they would have to raise their bid hugely. I've seen people saying, and I can't confirm this, but I've seen people saying Brighton have put like a 90 million or 100 million price tag on him. When you think this is a 21-year-old kid who's played 30 games in the Premier League, who only signed for 5 million a couple of years ago, I mean, spending 100 million, 90 million just seems absolutely mad on him for a player who's, let's face it, if everyone's fit, is not going to start. I'm just not sure you can necessarily do that if you're Arsenal, but we shall see. I've seen there have been reports that Arsenal made a second bid. I haven't been told that, so I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that is the case. I mean, it might be, and I just might not have found out. But as far as I'm aware, there's only, up to this point, so far at the time of recording this video, there's only been one bid that certainly that I know about. We'll see if that changes over the coming hours or days, but they are running out of time. Brighton are playing at the moment while I'm recording this video. They were 1-1 last time I saw against Liverpool in the FA Cup. Caicedo, of course, is not playing because he's been told to stay away from the club until after the transfer window closes because he's not in the right frame of mind. Obviously, that statement that he released on Friday night has caused a lot of anger and frustration. Maybe not so much with him, but certainly with his representatives. So Brighton are not happy with him. They've asked him to stay away. De Zerbi was talking about it. He was asked on ITV about it ahead of that game against Liverpool. This is what he had to say to the TV cameras. He said, Moises is a good guy. We will see tomorrow and in the next days what happens. We hope that he stays with us until the end of the season. But after this, it's a question for the club and for Moises. Moises is a good guy. In life, you can make mistakes. For everyone, there are many solutions. And we will see what the best solution is for the club, for him, and for us. So those are the words of Roberto De Zerbi ahead of their game against Liverpool. I mean, when you sort of look at them written down in front of you, they don't exactly scream not for sale at any price there, do they? You know, it's not like he's actually saying that, but I mean, it's not his decision anyway. It's Tony Bloom, it's Brighton hierarchy's decision. It's not De Zerbi's decision. He can have a say, obviously, as a manager, but ultimately it's up to the bigwigs at the club, the owners, the chairman, the CEOs, those sort of things. So, but it doesn't scream at you. That's a manager saying he is going absolutely nowhere. He's left it a little bit open there when he says there are many solutions. We'll see what the best solution is for the club, for him and for us. Now, Arsenal aren't the only club involved in this, obviously. Chelsea have also bid for him. Their bid was less than Arsenal's, 55 million. Arsenal's was 60. Both those bids have been rejected. I don't think Chelsea have gone back with a second bid, but they might as well. Of course, they're still interested. And we know that Chelsea are throwing money left, right and centre at everyone at the moment. So you could never sit here and rule them out if suddenly they get any sort of inkling that he might be available. They might come in as well. So this is not just purely an Arsenal thing. There's other clubs involved in this as well. For Arsenal, it's an interesting point. What do you do? How far do you push it? If you really want to sign a midfielder, which they clearly do, how far do you push this one? Or do you move on and think, you know, we've only got a couple of days here. We're going to have to try and find someone else, even if it's just a short-term thing, a loan to cover through to the end of the season. Do we need to spend our time working elsewhere? So that's the thing that they're mulling over. Last time I spoke to someone who was kind of in and around the club about this, they were sort of pointing out that message. At the moment, they weren't sure exactly what they were going to do. They'd got the message from Brighton. They'd had that first bid rejected. It was a case of mulling over what the next move is. As far as I'm aware, another bid hasn't yet got in, so we'll have to wait and see if that changes or not. So that's the latest when it comes to Moises Caicedo. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's worth trying again, or do you think they should probably just move on, accept defeat? Admit that this was a really difficult one to try and get done this late on in the window, and try and find someone else who can at least come in and provide some cover in midfield. Cedric Soares, we're still waiting for that loan move to Fulham to go through. Hasn't happened yet. Still expect it will go through before Tuesday's deadline. I haven't been told otherwise yet. If I hear of anything involving that deal, of course, I'll put it out on my social media, so keep an eye peeled. I can't imagine anyone else is going to go from Arsenal. Certainly not major first-team player is going to go from Arsenal between now and the end of the window. I think Cedric's the only one. I mean, the squad's just not massive, so you can't really be sending people out. Maybe Marquinhos, if an offer came in for Marquinhos, a loan offer, that could be something that Arsenal might look to do, especially with the addition of Trossard. but we'll have to wait and see. It depends. Well, we're not sure exactly yet when Reece Nelson is going to be back fit. Away from transfers, a bit of news on Arsenal and their FA charges. Of course, they got hit twice in very quick succession by FA charges. One after the way they sort of reacted at the end of the Newcastle game. That was for a penalty decision, wasn't it? And then straight after that, they got hit by another one after the Oxford game, and that was as a result of how they sort of called and demanded for a penalty in the first half when I think it was Sam Lee Conga's shot was blocked by an arm of an Oxford player. Arsenal called for a penalty, wasn't given, referee gave a corner. The Arsenal players surrounded referee, asking him to change his mind, shouting at him to change his mind, whatever. And a few days later, we found out the FA had charged Arsenal for the conduct of their players over that incident. Now, Arsenal have appealed that. I am told, and they've appealed it on the basis it was unreasonable and unfair. They've said that it's unfair because basically everyone does it, and they sent in a lot of evidence showing other teams doing exactly the same thing and not being punished. They believed it was unreasonable as well because in the sort of charge that was hit at them at the FA, it said that the players were forcefully trying to get the referee to overturn his on-field decision. But Arsenal say there's no mention of that in the actual referee's report. So the referee hasn't said that Arsenal were forcibly trying to do that to him. And so they believe that's why the unreasonable basis for this charge comes up. Now, the appeal was submitted a few days ago. We haven't heard back yet whether or not it has been successful. Now, even if they do get charged, if it goes through, they're going to be hit with a bit of a fine. It's not massive, but I don't think that's the whole reason Arsenal are doing this. I think they want to make a bit of a point here and say, look, we're not just going to accept this because we kind of feel like we're being picked on a little bit here. The first one, I think they appealed that one, but they still got hit. I can't remember if they appealed that or not. I think they did, and they still got hit by a fine. I imagine it's probably going to be the similar outcome here. They'll get hit by a fine because I can't see the FA backing down, but Arsenal still wanted to make this appeal kind of out of just to basically say, look, we're not just going to roll over and accept this because you're kind of making a bit of an example of us here, or that's certainly how they feel. All right, that's it from me. Sunday's video is done and dusted. Please do enjoy the rest of the day wherever you're watching this around the world. As always, anything you've seen, agreed with, disagreed with, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, everyone, having a great day, and I'll speak to you very soon.